In TypeScript, you have the unknown type and you have the any type. But how is the unknown type different from the any type, and what makes the unknown type safer than the any type? Well, that's what I'm going to help you understand in this video. The any type in TypeScript is a placeholder for any type. So it can be a boolean, a string, an object, while the unknown type in TypeScript is a placeholder for an unknown type. But what exactly does this mean? When using TypeScript as developers, sometimes we like using any because we don't want to have to worry about thinking, should this be a string, a boolean, this interface, this type. But using any is not very safe. By using any, you are basically turning off TypeScript features, which means you won't get all of those type support. But the unknown type, on the other hand, is kind of a safer version of the any type. And I have some examples here which I'm going to use to explain what makes this safer. Okay, so here I have this variable. Variable 1 has an any type, and then here I assign value 1 to variable 1. If you remember, value 1 is any. You see we don't get any error because you can assign any to any. I also assign value 2 to variable 1 and we still don't get any error. Value 2 is unknown, so here I'm assigning unknown to any, and the reason why this works is because, well, any can be any type, which means any can also be an unknown type. So that means you can assign unknown to any. But now as we proceed further, this is where you get to understand how these two types are different. So here I have variable 2, which is a boolean. And now I assign value 1 to variable 2. I don't get any error. Value 1 is of the any type. And because any can be a boolean, we can assign that to variable 2 and we don't get any errors. But now when we come here, we are trying to assign unknown to a boolean, and now we have this error: type unknown is not assignable to type boolean. So this is an unknown type. So TypeScript is like, I don't know what this type is, so I cannot assume that this type is going to match a boolean type. So you can only assign the unknown type to another unknown type, or you can assign the unknown type to an any type, but you cannot assign the unknown type to any other type like a boolean or a string. For example, here we also have a string. This variable 3 is a string. We can assign an any type to this string type because any can also be a string, but unknown cannot be assigned to a string. We also have this example here where we call value 1, which is any, and we call the push method on value 1. We don't have any error here. But then here, when we call the push method on value 2, we have this error: value 2 is of type unknown. So because this is unknown, TypeScript is like, I am not sure if this type has a push method because you have told me that this type is unknown. So when you use the any type in TypeScript, like I said earlier, you are basically turning off TypeScript features. So here we are calling value1.push. Even if the push method doesn't actually exist on value 1, let's say value 1 here is null. Obviously, value 1 does not have the push method, but because we have already typed value 1 to be any, TypeScript is not going to complain if we call a push method like this. This is why I said it is not safe. So you have told TypeScript value 2 is unknown. How can you now tell TypeScript that I now know the type of value 2? And this is where you have to narrow your type. So here, what we're now going to do is, instead of saying variable 2 is equals to value 2, I'm now going to have if type of value 2 is equals to boolean, then I can now do variable 2 is equals to value 2. So by doing this check, you are narrowing the unknown type to be boolean. So in this context here, in this block, if this condition is true, that means value 2 is a boolean, and now you can see value 2 is a boolean, which you can now assign to variable 2. And we can repeat the same thing for the string here. Then I can now assign value 2 to variable 3. Same thing for this line here. I'm gonna say if array.isArray value 2, then I can now call value 2.push 1, 2, and you see we don't get any error here. Now you can also do the same thing for the any type. You can say if value1 is an array, value1.push1 2. Now this would be fine, but remember when we did it like this, TypeScript didn't complain because we have the any type. So this is why the any type turns off restrictions. So unless you remember to have a check like this, if you just do it like this, you might still run into errors. But then when you are using value2 of the unknown type, and TypeScript is going to make sure that you actually do something like this, where you check if value2 is an array, then you call value2.push. TypeScript is going to ensure that you do something like this before you can safely do this. So I hope you see why the unknown type is actually a safer option. Now let me show you some examples where you may use the unknown type. Let's say you have a function which gets something from local storage, then you're going to pass that item because you can only store string in local storage. So here you have JSON pass, and then you pass the item, or here we can say if item is null, return null. This is a type guard. I have a video on type guards. I'll link it below. Now, in your case, you might not know what to return from get from storage, because it's possible that the item that you saved in local storage can be a string, it can be a number, it can be an object, it can be an array. So what you might do here is to say return any. But when you return any, again, you are turning off TypeScript features, because, for example, here we say data get from storage, and then you should say data.push1 2. You see, we don't get any errors here. But what if the data that comes from storage is actually a string? Now this would throw an error. But then instead of using any, if you should now use unknown, saying I don't know what type I'm supposed to expect from the storage, I can get anything from the storage, then in this case you cannot just do data.push. You would now have to again narrow your type to say if array.isArray, and then you pass the data, then you can now do your data.push1 2. Again, with the any type, no restrictions, you can do whatever and TypeScript will not care. But when you use the unknown type, that is safer, because before you can actually perform certain operations on that value, you have to do checks like this. You can either do arrays array, instance of, type of. There are different checks you could do, but the idea is that you have to do those checks, and that is how you build safer applications, because by just using any, you won't have to do any of those checks and your application can crash. Well, I hope this video helps you understand how useful the unknown type is and how it is different from the any type. If you enjoyed this video, please give a like, share with others, and subscribe for more TypeScript videos like this.